Hello, and welcome for another adventure in the cookie jar. Today we are doing the third and a half recipe for the cream puff murder. They are the Minty Melts, as well as the frosting for them, which is a chocolate dip. So, for this recipe, we will have to let it chill, so we're not preheating the oven right away. We're going to want 1.5 cups melted butter, that's 3 sticks, 2.5 cups of white sugar, 2 beaten eggs, just whip them up with a fork, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a half teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of peppermint extract, 3 drops red food coloring or more if needed, 4 cups flour, there's no need to sift it, and then half a cup of white sugar to roll the balls in. For the chocolate dip, you want 2 cups of chocolate chips, 12 ounces, 1 stick butter, half cup. It starts off with a note saying, in the original recipe, these cookies are partially dipped in chocolate. If I don't feel like dipping and drying all those cookies, I take a little shortcut you might want to try someday. Right before I mix the flour into the cookie dough, I add a 12-ounce, 2 cups package of miniature chocolate chips. If they don't have the miniature in your store, you can use regular and chop them up in smaller pieces with a knife or in a food processor. Once the flour is mixed in, chill the dough and bake according to the original directions. Another trick we use with the cookie jar is to make half of the batch pink and the rest green for a pretty mix of cookies on the platter. And then it's, of course, the first ingredient is to melt the butter, add the sugar and let it cool. To that you'll add the eggs, the baking soda, the salt, and the extract, stirring after each addition. So you're adding them one at a time. It just lists everything you're going to add. And then it says to add the food coloring, then check the color of the dough. It should be bright pink. If the color's too pale, add another drop or 2 of food coloring and stir it in thoroughly. So apparently you're going for pink. I think peppermint, I think red, but they say pink. I think that's going to be trippy. If you're eating something pepperminty and it's pink, I'm not going to expect pink and brown to say peppermint. And then you're adding the flour into 1 cup increments. It says cover and refrigerate for at least 2 hours. Overnight is fine too. Preheat the oven to 350. It says spray 2 cookie sheets with Pam or another non-stick cooking spray, or use parchment paper to line the 2 cookie sheets. And it does specifically say 2 cookie sheets, which it doesn't really have a yield amount to this, but I have a feeling with 3 sticks of butter and 4 cups of flour, you're getting more than 24 cookies. There's no way that all of that makes 24 cookies. There's just no way. But it says to roll the chilled dough into walnut-sized balls, roll those into sugar, and place 12 to a cookie sheet. Flatten them down with a spatula or your impeccably clean hand. That way they don't roll around as you put them in the oven. They'll get 10 minutes, 2 minutes on the sheet when they come out, and then cool on a wire rack. Once they're cool, now if you transfer them with parchment paper, you can just move, but it says if you sprayed them, then to use wax paper, and then just dip the cookies over the wax paper and let them dry. Which the chocolate dip is essentially just mixing the chocolate and the butter and melting it together. I have a candy melter I'm going to melt it in because that just works better for me. Plus it'll keep it warm while I dip the cookies, which is one of the notes, is to keep this dip fairly hot so that it's thin and won't glop up when you dip the cookies in it. If it cools and thickens too much, just return it to the microwave for 10 seconds or to heat it so it's thinner. And then you're going to let that dry for an hour. Yield approximately 8 dozen depending on cookie size. Pretty and tasty cookies. These cookies can be frozen in single layers of wax paper. So why would it say to line 2 cookie sheets with parchment paper if it makes 8 dozen? You'd need 8 trays, not 2. That's strange. But everything's laid out. Let's get started. This is everything we'll be using today. Okay, so the first thing, we have our melted butter. We're taking our sugar. Now we're just going to blend those together. So really, at this point, you're looking for 3 factors. 1, color. You don't want it to be 2 different colors like white and yellow. You want it to be like a solid pale yellow. 2, you don't want to see any freestanding oil from the butter. And 3, you want it to cool down so that you can add the eggs. Right. And it is cooled down. So first thing goes in is the eggs. Slow that down and add the baking soda and the peppermint extract. All right, now it says 3 drops of food coloring. 1, it's 3 squeezes. I have no idea how many drops I put in, but I just kept going till I liked the color. Now we're adding flour a cup at a time. It definitely didn't stay bright pink. It is definitely a more pastel-y pink, and honestly half of this I bet is going to bake out. So I should have just made it red and I bet it would have baked to pink. But we're going to roll with it. Alright, so I'm just going to give this a final stir. Try to knock all of the flour in and down and then get it level. Last thing we want to do is cover it with plastic wrap. And we'll stick it in the fridge for a couple hours. Okay, so we're back a couple hours later. We have our chilled dough, which very hard. Just gonna scoop it into the sugar. Ooh, dear. Give it a nice little roll around. Now onto our tray. And we're just going to keep doing that until all of it is scooped up. And that is what this first batch is going to be. Let's get the rest of them scooped up and we'll see how many we get. So I have finished scooping, sugaring, and flattening. There are 74, which is just over 6 dozen plus 2 left over. They will bake for 10 minutes and then sit on the racks for 2. All right, we are back. We have our pile of cooled off cookies. We have our 12 ounces of chocolate chips and our stick of butter, all nice and melted. It is in the warmer, so it should stay melted, so that should not be an issue. And it says to dip 3/4 of the cookie. I'm gonna go with about a half because I don't know what 3/4 is. Very thick. I don't know. Huh. I don't like this. Seems like it's going to be too thick and there's not going to be enough chocolate. That's it. We're done. Now we're just going to let them harden over the next little bit, and that's it. And this is what all of them look like when they've been dipped. So I have a helper with me today. These are the Minty Melts with the chocolate dip. They taste just like those candy cane cookie bars I made once.
Yeah. They do taste like that.
They're cookie form of that candy cane cookie bar.
Yeah.
It's definitely a strong peppermint flavor. It works well with and without the chocolate. I feel like the chocolate tones down the zing of the peppermint though. So, very interesting. Next week, we are making mini cheeseburger cookies, which I think is a bunch of other cookies put together. Or maybe there's like some colored coconut and some frosting to look like ketchup. Anyway, I'm pretty sure they are going to be adorable and cute. And if you are interested in seeing those, join us next week. Bye!